City Council's Planning and Land Use Management Committee. My name is Marquise Harris Dawson, the chair of this committee, joined by our vice chair, Mr. Bob Blumenfeld of the San Fernando Valley, and Mr. Kern Price of the new 9th District. We're also joined by the leader of our mighty Department of City Planning, Mr. Vince Bertoni. We'll begin this meeting as we do all meetings. CD1's in the house. The inimitable Mr. Gil Cedillo, one of the most prolific legislators of our time. We'll welcome him to the committee as well.
That's a good makeup.
If you have a car accident and someone has a driver's license, you might be able to thank Mr. Cedillo for that. So we'll begin our meeting. We begin this meeting as we do all meetings, and that's with folks who have signed up for multiple items of public comment. There are no such members, so we'll close public comment on all items at this time. So we have folks that have signed up on a number of topics, and we will come to them as those topics are raised or items are raised. Mr. Mejia, we'll begin our meeting with item number 2.
Yes, Councilman. Item 2 is a report from the Planning Department as to a zone change and a high district change ordinance. And also there's a city attorney prepare ordinance as to the community plan implementation overlay district in the West Adams community plan area.
All right. Without objection, I'll ask that we take that item on consent. Hearing none, that'll be the order. Then on item number 3, there's been a request to continue that item.
Yes, Councilman. The continuance date is June 18th, and one change rather to the agenda. The last day for council to act should be noted as July the 2nd rather than June 2nd. So if the clerk can correct that.
All right, so that'll be the order. Thank you.
Yes.
That takes us to item number 1, which we'll receive and file.
Okay.
And on to item number 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission. It's relative to the inclusion of Tom Bergens as a historic cultural monument located in CD4.
All right, we have a report from Mr. Bernstein, according to my notes.
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. Councilmember, I believe this item was placed on the agenda as indicated on the agenda for the committee to consider a 15-day extension of the time.
All right. I don't see any such notes among my notes, but...
So, Councilman, if the committee could refer this issue to the council requesting the 15-day extension, and the clerk has the appropriate section in the administrative code, section 22.171.10F.
All right. Without objection, that'll be the order.
Thank you, Council.
So this will go to the full council?
Yes, for the 15-day extension, and then subsequently back to this committee.
Yeah, and then it'll
the
come back
council
to
needs to act on the extension.
It'll come back to the committee
Yes,
after the count. Got it. Okay. And so we had public speakers on that item. Do we need to hear those public comments?
I don't think so because we're not hearing the item today.
Okay.
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. If you have public speakers, you should take comment. Again, the action item is consideration of a 15-day extension. When this matter returns, you will have to reopen public comment on the substance of the matter and the actual hearing.
Okay, so we would do the public hearing at that time.
You can, and you can hold comments till then.
Thank you. So we'll hold comments on that one until next time. That takes us to item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the City Planning Commission. It also includes 2 appeals on file from the Laborers International Union Local 300 and Unite Here Local 11. And this is a 700-unit residential project along with a vesting tract map located in CD14.
All right. Department of City Planning.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Michael Sin, planning staff for the 1000 South Hill Street project.
The item before you today is an appeal of a vesting tentative tract map for residential and commercial condominium purposes, totaling 700 dwelling units and 15,000 square feet of commercial floor area. To provide some background, the advisory agency had originally approved the map and adopted the Mitigated Negative Declaration, or MND, for the project on September 6, 2018. The decision was subsequently appealed by two organizations, Unite Here Local 11 and the Laborers International Union of America. On November 8, 2018, the City Planning Commission denied the appeals and sustained the advisory agency's decision. The same parties have now further appealed the approvals to the City Council, asserting that the MND prepared for the project is inadequate and that an EIR should be required. The arguments they raise in this appeal are largely the same appeal points that were raised before the CPC, which were addressed by staff in the appeal recommendation report and was discussed at the public hearing before the CPC. Their comments relate to air quality, greenhouse gases, and transportation impacts, and they do not raise or provide any new substantial evidence that would support their claims that an EIR is required. In addition, the city, as a lead agency, has found that the project qualifies as a transit priority project and that a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, or a SCIA, could be prepared and considered in lieu of the MND. A SCIA is another form of CEQA review created by Senate Bill 375 that provides CEQA streamlining for transit priority projects that are consistent with the applicable sustainable community strategy. As such, the city has elected to prepare a SCIA as environmental clearance for the project in lieu of the MND. By proceeding with the SCIA, the city is not conceding that the MND is inadequate. On the contrary, the SCIA is substantially the same as the underlying MND that was prepared, but offers the benefit of streamlined review and the substantial evidence standard of review. The SCIA for the project was published on April 4th, 2019, with a 30-day comment period. The city received 3 comment letters and has responded to each of them. In response to a comment from Metro, staff recommends a minor modification to one of the mitigation measures to require the applicant to coordinate with transit line operators that have bus stops adjacent to the project site. Planning staff also recommends that the following clarification language be added to page 4-1 of the SCIA, as reflected in the technical clarification dated May 28, 2019, and as follows. For each impact category where the city has determined that the use of a city mitigation measure or a federal, state, regional, or city regulation is equal to or more effective than the SCAG MMRP mitigation measure, the decision is based on the analysis in Section 6, Sustainable Communities Environmental Analysis, including all technical reports in the appendix. Staff also recommends that the following clarification language be added to page 4-21 of the SCIA, also as reflected in the technical clarification, and as follows. Furthermore, there are no historical resources on the project site and no historical resources that would be demolished, destroyed, altered, or relocated as a result of the project. Indirect impacts were also analyzed in light of the existence of 2 sites that are identified as eligible for listing in the National Register in the Central Business District Historic Resources Survey. The project would not result in a substantial adverse change to the immediate surroundings of this historical resource to the degree its eligibility as a resource would be materially impaired. It would continue to be eligible for listing as historical resource defined by SCIA. No mitigation is required or applicable. So in closing, staff recommends that you find the project qualifies as a transit priority project and meets the other SCIA eligibility criteria as detailed in the department's letter dated May 23, 2019. Modify page 4-1 and 4-21 of the SCIA to include the clarification language as noted previously, and modify mitigation measure T3 to require coordination with transit line operators with bus stops adjacent to the project site. Adopt the SCIA and the mitigation monitoring program prepared for the SCIA. Deny the appeals and sustain the decision of the CPC to approve case number VTT 747601A and adopt the conditions of approval and findings of the CPC as the conditions of approval and findings of the City Council with the following modifications. 1. Modify conditions number 14 and 15 to reflect the mitigation measures identified in the SKIA and as modified by City Council, as detailed in the May 23, 2019 letter. And 2. Modify findings of fact to reflect the adoption of the SKIA and mitigation monitoring program prepared for the SKIA as the environmental clearance for the project, as detailed in the May 23, 2019 letter. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments, members? If not, we will hear from the appellant representative. Just indicate your name and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you so much, Chair Harris Dawson, members Price, Blumenfeld, Cedillo. My name is Gideon Krakow for the appellants, Unite Here Local 11 and Antonio Mendoza. We have a packet we passed out to you, so if you wish, you can follow along. I tend to speak pretty quickly, being a former New Yorker. The basis of this appeal, which really wasn't touched on by staff, is we're concerned that you can't make the land use findings without some affordability component for this 60-story building and meaningful conditions preventing a hotel use at the site. You have to make certain findings today for the tract map. They include consistency with the general and specific plans, that the site is suitable for the density, that it's consistent with the policies in the current SCAG regional transportation plan, and that the project contains residential use. Well, as proposed, are we sure that it does? And the answer is no. Therefore, we're asking that you impose conditions ensuring that ANI actually provides housing, that it actually is going to be used for condos, that it's not going to be a short-term rental, that there are reasonable lease terms, and that it satisfies all housing requirements. We're not trying to stop this project. We're simply trying to make it plan consistent. You know the background on the project: 60 stories tall, 700 units, 0 affordable. Now, we're not here for no reason. We're not here to waste your time, but look at ANI's past practice. They promised residential, but often convert to hotel or short-term rental. It happened at 888 South Olive, 300 condo units, but converted it to tours under an informal building and safety process. The city of Vancouver, in 2017, they were fined for illegal short-term rentals. The council person said this is hugely problematic. It undermines the social fabric of the city. City of Vancouver, the rents were so high, it's not for the local market. It's not solving housing affordability. I wouldn't have approved it. The city of Ontario, because they're a Canadian company, we're having the same problem other cities are having. ANI says one thing during the development process and then does another thing years later. We're not here to waste time, but we're concerned about the pattern and practice. This is not, council members, about organizing a hotel. It's not about an organizing fight. It's about following the rules. If it's going to be a hotel, let's say so before we make the findings required by the code. You know about the city's desperate need for housing. We don't have a need for short-term rentals. I have all these statistics here. You know about the low vacancy rate, the extent of the housing crisis. You know about HERE Local 11. We're here under the First Amendment with the core function of the union to make sure that this city is a place that our members can live and work and afford to live. We're also here for Antonio Mendoza, who lives very close to the project site. So let's look at the applicable plans and code requirements. Can you really make the plan consistency findings for a 60-story tower with no affordability and no real limitations on short-term rentals? The answer is no. Here's the housing element. We've underlined all the places it talks about affordable housing and residential. The next page, the Central City Community Plan, talking about housing for all incomes and the need for residential units for a full range of incomes. The next page, the City Center Redevelopment Plan, housing for low, very low, and low-income persons, housing for all income groups, housing. The 2016 RTP SCS for all people, more affordable homes, a shortage of housing, affordable housing. So in conclusion, let's trust but verify with some additional conditions, council members. Without those, you can't make the findings that are required, the plan consistency findings under the code. Ani has supposedly agreed to the TOR's condition for the project entitlements informally. Well, let's put it in writing. Why are they going to oppose it? If they weren't opposing it, we wouldn't be here today. There's conditions that are needed, that they should use it as a condo, which they say they're going to, no tours or other short-term rentals, some lease term restriction, and affordability. There are special findings needed. You can't make it without these conditions. Please grant the appeal.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a second appellant, Mr. Drury. Okay, so we don't see our second appellant, so I'll ask the applicant or their representative to come forward for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, honorable committee members. My name is Dale Goldsmith. I'm a partner with the law firm of Armbruster, Goldsmith & Delvac, representing the applicant, the Ani Group. I'll be brief. The project requires a number of approvals. It includes the track map for condominium purposes, site plan review, and TFAR, which requires public benefits. Today before you is only the track map. The site plan review and the TFAR is still pending. The issues raised by Mr. Krakow are more appropriately addressed in the context of those other approvals and not the track map, which merely permits the site to be subdivided into residential and commercial condominiums. Regarding his assertion that affordable housing is required in every project in order to approve a track map is just patent nonsense. This council has approved lots of track maps, some with affordable housing, some without. It is not a requirement. And again, to the extent that this is an important issue to the city, and I'll concede that it is, it's appropriately considered in the context of those other approvals. And indeed, there was a spirited discussion at the City Planning Commission regarding the public benefits and devoting a large share of that to affordable housing. So we will get to that issue at the appropriate time. Today isn't it? And therefore, I would respectfully request that you deny both appeals and uphold the Commission's and the advisory agency's approval of the track map. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. That takes us to public comment on this. We've got almost a couple dozen speakers on this, so we're going to ask, I'm going to try to do 15 minutes on both sides. When I call your name, please come up. You'll have 1 minute to speak on the topic, and just line up as you hear your name. Michael Shilstone, Adon Simpson, Doug Summers, Brian Germain, Chris Cheek.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Shilstone with Central City Association. We represent over 400 businesses and nonprofits in LA, and we're strong advocates for more investment in housing and amenities for the residents and workers who call downtown home. We're here today to support the proposed Olympic and Hill project by Ani Group, which will replace a surface parking lot with a thoughtfully designed mixed-use housing and retail development. The project's 700 new housing units will provide more opportunities for many people to live near where they work in a transit-rich area. The building's design also promotes walkability. The approximately 15,000 square feet of ground floor retail will activate the sidewalk, and the parking podium is wrapped with residential units to provide articulation and eyes on the street, a design approach that can serve as an example for future developments. Ani Group is a great partner to downtown and has a track record of delivering high-quality projects. We look forward to their next contribution with this development in the South Park neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name's Adon. I'm with Local 11. We approve the project. We strongly urge you to approve the project. We've worked. This company has worked with Local 11 previously. They They provide really safe working environments for local workers. And we just strongly approve. We ask you to approve the project.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Summers. I am with UA Local 709 Fire Sprinkler Fitters, Los Angeles. The Ani Group is a high-quality builder and is exactly the type of project that should be approved downtown. They've made strong commitments with the skilled trades to provide livable wages, good health care, pension benefits. So on behalf of our 1,100 hard-working fire sprinkler fitters, we ask that you approve this project.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Germain. I'm here with Sheet Metal Workers, Local 105. I got 3 of them behind me. We're here to support this project. Los Angeles needs an owner-builder like Omni Group to continue the development expansion. Approving this project will strengthen this trend and help define the long-term future of the city, of our city. This project will bring much-needed life to an area that really needs a residential building and quality retail to serve the South Park neighborhood. This is a great project, and I urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Chris Cheek. I'm here on behalf of Plumbers Local 78 in Los Angeles. We are in strong support of the project because it'll bring thousands of good-paying jobs to the hardworking men and women of Los Angeles. We commend the applicant for committing to area wage standards that will allow our skilled workers to better provide for their families and help build the local economy. We hope that the committee will take this opportunity to support our local workforce by approving the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gus Torres, Joanna Aguilera, Morana Morita, Stephanie Neff, April Papili.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Joanna Aguilera with Arms of LA on support this project. We are especially excited about the local hire companion of this project because we have first-hand experience on the benefits local hire programs. Our members have secured jobs and careers in the construction industry. We hope that you will give more members such an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Miranda Marita on behalf of Arms LA. We support this project. We appreciate the fact that the applicants are willing to turn an empty parking lot into a high-class building with 700 residential units. The project will not only contribute to downtown's reputation as an active, growing urban center, but also provide badly needed housing units for our city. This is extremely the type of project that will thrive in downtown Los Angeles, and we strongly urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Stephanie Neff, and I support this project.
One more time and into the mic.
Ani Group has a great track record of creating quality jobs across multiple industries, and this project is no exception. The project will create quality construction and long-term jobs. It will also provide 700 units close to mass transit and in the midst of our housing crisis. We need this project, and I hope that this committee feels the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, you got to speak into the mic so it's a part of the audio record of this meeting. There's an argument later. We want to know that you were here and whose side you were on. So please, into the mic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is April Papili with Arms of Los Angeles, and we support this project. This is an electrifying project that will develop the future of South Park 2 District. It will create pedestrian-friendly environment to an area currently bound by a dark alley and an empty parking lot. No bueno. And provide a diverse unit mix that will help our housing supply. Omni Group continues to surpass the competition with the quality buildings they develop, as well as their support to our local workforce. We support this project and urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gus Torres. I'm here on behalf of UA Local 250 pipe fitters, welders, and apprentices. And we're here to support this project because the applicant has lived up to their commitment of working closely with the public in proposing a project that is compatible with the surrounding area and that benefits our community. The project also ensures good paying construction jobs and guarantees a safe work environment for our workers. Thank you for your time, and God bless.
Thank you. Juliana Mendez, Miguel Nalgoza, David Guibe, Gina Burnett, Jose Pina, Godfrey Wachira.
Good afternoon. My name is Miguel Malgoza, and I proudly support this project. We as a city should be actively encouraging that all the land within walking proximity of mass transit be used to build housing and increasing density. This project accomplishes that by adding 700 units in the middle of our housing crisis. This is the kind of project our city needs at this time, and I hope that you approve this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Graby, and I'm in full support of this project. This project addresses the need for housing while also including commercial space that will support our local economy. The applicant has committed to local hire and fair wages, allowing individuals to launch careers in the construction industry. So let's support good investment in our community by approving this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Juliana Mendez, and I'm here to support this project. We are proud that the applicant is willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into our city. Their actions are a statement of confidence in our city and our people and our economy and local workforce. This project provides much needed housing and public benefits that make our local economy stronger, so we strongly urge you to approve this project.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Gina Burnett with Creed LA. We are here in support of this project. We support the project because the applicant is committed to including great features such as rooftop solar panels, electric vehicle charging stations, energy-efficient appliances, and water-efficient landscaping that support and promote environmental sustainability. Every time the environment is protected, like in this project, we all win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jose Pina with Creed LA. We strongly support this project because its ground floor is well thought out and it provides street activation to a currently dormant corner. We also like the fact that the architect is providing a unique podium design with the ramps on units level 3 and 4. We believe that this is an example for other projects to follow. Lastly, the project will create a pedestrian-friendly environment to an area that is currently bound by a dark alley and empty paved parking lot. This is a great project for our city, and we strongly urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Godfrey Wachira, Creed LA. In the interest of time, I'll keep it short. This project is being proposed by ONI, and you know that they will build it. I think it's a great project, and it's much needed. I think it conforms to all plans. It just does not conform to some people's personal vendetta. Deny the appeal and approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh Krager, Susan Hunter, Mickey Jackson.
Josh Krieger with the South Park Business Improvement District. The project is within our district. We don't take formal positions on projects, but I wanted to speak just generally about what we'd like to see in the area. This is a very transit-rich area. Over 40% of our residents take transit to get around downtown. So high-density residential mixed use is a very good fit for the area. In particular, this area along Olympic Boulevard is kind of a transition area from historic core financial district to South Park, and so improving the pedestrian realm is very important to us. particularly having retail and new street trees and improved sidewalks in that area. Finally, the developer has done a number of projects in our district and around downtown. They've been great with our organization. They presented to our board multiple times and interacted with staff and have been a great partner and neighbor in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Hunter, Housing is a Human Right. I'm here today to cite that this project is not in compliance with the redevelopment plan in the area because we have not met our 15% area-wide affordable housing needs. So therefore, it's not in compliance. We cannot approve it today. But of course, you do have the ability to make a mandate that there be a certain percentage set aside, so then that way you would start fulfilling the requirements of the CRA redevelopment plan. I would recommend 15%. If the property developer has a problem with that, I hope that they would hold this plan and go back to the drawing board and come back with a better proposal. And when I talk about the fact that we only approve luxury developments in the Planning and Land Use Committee, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I hope that you will make the right decision and make a determination that in order to fulfill the CRA redevelopment plan for the area, they have to set aside at least 10 to 15% affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Jackson, Housing is a Human Right. I adopt everything the previous speaker said. So usually the excuse for luxury, which we know even the real estate industry admits is at a glut in Los Angeles. Big amounts of vacancies in luxury developments because everybody who can afford $3,000 and $4,000 for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment has one. So we're not even going to ask for a fig leaf, not one single affordable unit, not even a little tiny fig leaf to hide behind. So I would say this is where City Council, Plum Committee gets pretty naked.
Thank you. Maria Buenostros, Gio Galarza. That concludes our public comment.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Gio Galarza. I support this project because it's good for the community, the environment, and the local workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Maria?
I am Maria Mijangos. I am Maria Mijangos. I need help.
Translation?
Yeah.
We get translation?
I can translate.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah. Sí, señora.
Pues nosotros venimos, yo trabajo en un hotel y soy de la local 11. Y nosotros no estamos de acuerdo a esa construcción porque nosotros vivimos en este distrito y no están pensando en nosotros. Yo creo que no es la...
So she indicates that she's a member of Local 11. She works in the hotels and she lives in the district and she's against the project.
Nosotros solo necesitamos que hagan proyectos accesibles a nosotros, los trabajadores.
So she indicates that she is for projects that are accessible to working class people.
Que tengan de rentas a largo plazo, no a corto plazo.
And that they are long-term units for rent rather than short-term.
He oído en este cuarto que solo están pensando en los beneficios de los ricos y los pobres, ¿qué?
And what I hear in this room is that what's being indicated are the benefits for the rich rather than the poor.
Thank you so much. That concludes public comment for this item. I'll give staff the opportunity to respond to what we heard from either the applicant, the appellant, or folks in public comment.
Sure. Once again, for the record, Michael Sin with Planning. In response to the questions about hotel uses, that's not part of the proposed project. The vesting Hendo track map is strictly for residential and commercial condominiums. Staff actually does recommend a condition of approval
that would prohibit the conversion of any of these dwelling units into tours or other short-term uses. However, that is not appropriate for the tract map, which is strictly for the sale and finance of land. This is reflected in the commission report that we have provided, and again, we are in support of such a measure. In response to concerns about the CRA plans, the CRA plan actually does not have an inclusionary requirement for the central city area. That said, the project would be required to provide TFAR public benefit payment, and one of those things that was discussed in CPC, for instance, was contributions towards the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Thank you. If that concludes your comments, I'll ask members if there's any discussion on this matter. Seeing none, Mr. Mejia, I'll move that we deny the appeals filed by the laborers, Local 300, and Mr. Carnau and Mendoza, and find, based on the entire administrative record and all comments received, that the project qualifies as a transit priority project pursuant to Public Resource Code Section 21155B. The proposed project is consistent with the general use designations, density, building intensity, and applicable policies specified for the project area in the Regional Transportation Plan / Sustainable Community Strategy, prepared by SCAG. The proposed project contains more than 50% residential units, provides a minimum net density greater than 20 units per acre, and is within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop or high-quality transit corridor, including the RTP and SCS. The proposed project is a residential or mixed-use project as defined by the PRC Section 21159.28D. The proposed project incorporates all feasible mitigation measures, performance standards, or criteria set forth in the prior environmental reports, including SCAG's 2016-2040 RTP SCS Program Environmental Impact Report. All potentially significant or significant effects required to be identified and analyzed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act in an initial study have been identified and analyzed in an initial study, and that said initial study has been prepared and circulated in compliance with the PRA Section 2115.2B. And then with respect to all the potentially significant or significant effects on the environment required to be identified in the initial study, changes or alterations have been required in or incorporated into the project that avoids or mitigates the significant effects to a level of insignificance, and those changes or alterations that are within the responsibility and jurisdiction of another public agency and have been or can and should be adopted by that other agency. Mitigation measures will be made enforceable as enforceable conditions on the project. We have two more. One, that we find the proposed project complies with the requirements of CEQA for using a SCEA as an authorized pursuant to the PRC Section 21155.2B. Third, modify, as staff indicated, mitigation measure MM-T-3, construction management plan of the SCEA, to require coordination with transit line operators with bus stops adjacent to the project site, and find that the modification to the mitigation measures does not require recirculation of the SCA pursuant to PRC sections, because the modification merely clarifies, amplifies, or makes insignificant modifications to the SCEA, and the new measure is equivalent and more effective in mitigating or avoiding potential significant effects, and that in itself will not cause any potentially significant effect on the environment. Four, that we adopt the SCEA and the MMP prepared for the SCEA, and then we approve the vesting tentative tract map for the project located at 1000 South Hill Street, 1000 through 1034 South Hill Street, and 220 through 226 West Olympic Boulevard.
Perfect.
Without objection? Without objection, members? Hearing none, that'll be the order. That takes us to item number 6.
Councilman, item 6 are 2 reports that were requested by this committee back on December the 12th, 2017. It relates to the ongoing sign ordinance. There's a May 22nd report from City Planning, and there's also a consultant prepare report relative to the financials and the 3 case studies that were requested therein.
All right. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, committee members, planning staff. I'm Tom Rothman, Principal City Planner with our Code Studies Division.
Good afternoon, Phyllis Nathanson with Code Studies. Plum has been considering an ordinance to update the citywide sign regulations since 2009 and has been presented several versions of an ordinance. Generally, the update has addressed maintaining the city's current ban on off-site signs, which are commonly known as billboards, with exceptions, achieving a net reduction of off-site signs, limiting the location of on-site digital signs, adding more restrictive requirements for establishing sign districts, establishing digital display standards, creating sign-specific relief mechanisms, and establishing higher fines for violations. In March 2016, the city attorney presented an ordinance requested by Plum that limited all off-site signs and on-site digital signs to sign districts. In May 2017, Plum instructed planning to revise the 2016 ordinance to establish a relocation agreement process for allowing off-site signs outside of sign districts and administratively allowing on-site digital signs outside of sign districts, both with specifications from Plum, and to develop a billboard blight reduction policy document with certain content specified by Plum. In December 2017, after planning presented the revised ordinance per Plum's instructions, Plum instructed planning to report back on a number of additional items. And so today, planning is presenting a report that responds to those instructions. The report includes the draft billboard blight reduction policy document requested with a working title of Guide to Off-Site Signs, Billboards in Los Angeles. Just would like to note that this is a first draft of an off-site sign guide to the public. The draft corresponds to the provisions of the December 2017 draft ordinance, and it's merely an example of what such a guide could look like. The report also responds to other instructions by Plum and provides options for administering relocation agreements on city-owned property, examples of relocation agreements in other cities. And just a note, technical correction to the staff report, not all the cities listed actually have enabling ordinances. However, as stated in the report, 12 of the cities had entered into relocation agreements that allowed new off-site signs in exchange for sign reduction. The report also includes discussion on relocation agreements for off-site signs in the public right-of-way, and options for an opt-in provision for the use of relocation agreements. And finally, a discussion about a relocation agreement process without a findings requirement.
Is that it?
That's it.
From everybody?
Yes. We're here to answer any questions if you have anything.
So my first question is, what's the upshot? What'd you find out?
We have an ordinance from 2017. We have the policy document that provides a guide to the public. We answered the questions. So specifically, you want the want me to summarize the answers, I can do that.
Yes.
Okay, so the process described in the report was provided by the CAO, so they are probably best to answer any questions about that. But generally, the process could be a non-solicited option where people who would like to provide off-site signs would come directly to the city, or it could be by a bid solicitation, and the process is outlined how that could unfold. Like I said, there are 12 cities that, as of 2016, have entered into relocation agreements for off-site signs in exchange for sign reduction. Our discussion of off-site signs in the public right-of-way shows an example of what such a sign might look like, and we, as the planning department staff, recommend against that. We support off-site signs on property rather than in the public right-of-way for safety and aesthetic reasons. The opt-in provision, we're suggesting that if a particular geography would like to either, if the ordinance could be written so as to allow a particular geography to opt in and allow relocation agreements, or conversely, it could be written for certain geographies to opt out. It does not have to be a citywide ordinance. And our discussion about a relocation agreement process without a findings requirement, the way the ordinance is currently written, it's a discretionary approval for these relocation agreements. And anytime you have a discretionary approval, findings are required. There's just no way legally to avoid a findings requirement. I hope that answers your questions.
All right. That's a lot. We've got a number of public comment speakers on this. So I think what we're going to do, members, is we'll take public comment. We'll ask you all to sit tight so we can get all the issues on the board, and then we'll have a discussion about it. But I think just to prep everybody, the major categories are what is the sort of takedown or the blight reduction mechanism, what are the parameters and process to develop new sign districts, and then obviously we have to deal with the penalties as well, and then this whole question of billboards on public property versus private property and how those things relate to each other. So those seem to be the big categories. If I'm missing one, please flag me now. But based on your report and what I've read, and having dealt with this for the almost 4 years I've been on the council, I think those are the major categories.
Yeah, I think you got all three very accurately. Very good.
Cool. Thank you. All right, so I'll start calling public comment speakers, and you have a minute each. We ask you to line up. We got a number of them, so please be expeditious in your approach and your comments. Thank you. Cindy Starrett, Benjamin Hanlon, Nancy Hoffman, Vanyek, Angela Gibson, Patrick Frank.
Good morning, council members. I'm Cindy Starrett here on behalf of Clear Channel Outdoor. The staff report lists about 40 California cities that are already implementing relocation agreements and relocation laws. These are expressly authorized by state law, Section 5412 of the Outdoor Advertising Act. This should be a citywide ordinance, as it is in all these other cities. There are certainly individual properties. There may be specific plans in other areas where signage is restricted. But otherwise, in order to achieve blight reduction, it has to be citywide. This truly is a blight reduction ordinance because we have 9,000 existing faces in the city. Many of them are concentrated in areas that need economic development, and the ordinance will allow takedowns 50% in a district, 50% outside of a district. So any restriction restricts the benefits citywide, not just in one district. The blight reduction is a critical tool for the city. It's voluntary, it's authorized by state law, and it's past time to go forward and bring those benefits to Los Angeles. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Benjamin Hanlon, also on behalf of Clear Channel Outdoor. We support an ordinance that permits relocation agreements across the entire city and without opt-ins or opt-outs. This is the best way to achieve the city's goal of reducing billboards for 4 reasons. 1, from a practical perspective, an opt-in requirement is unnecessary. Individual relocation agreements are discretionary acts, each reviewed on a case-by-case basis. 2, it reduces the opportunities for signage takedown and city revenue. 3, it would disproportionately harm economically impacted communities. If commercially feasible areas opt out.
I'm sorry, let me stop you, stop your time. Why do you, what's the basis of the last statement you made?
The concern is that ultimately the signs are going to go in areas where they are most commercially feasible.
Right.
If those areas opt out and there aren't enough locations in those areas, then the areas where you're not going to have digital signs necessarily most economically viable are not going to see the benefits of the sign reduction and of the community benefits.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Fourth, from a legal perspective, we believe it renders the ordinance vulnerable to challenge. It is unclear how arbitrarily drawn boundaries furthers the city's interests in aesthetic and traffic safety. And just one more, there already actually is an opt-out provision in the ordinance as it exists. In order for signs to be relocated, they need to be in commercially zoned areas, public facility areas, and areas that are designated regional center under the land use plan. So it already limits the areas. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Hoffman-Vaniak, CEO of the Greater San Fernando Valley Chamber of Commerce. More than 1,500 municipalities in 46 states throughout the country have enacted comprehensive sign ordinances allowing for the reasonable and responsible use of digital and traditional signs. The proposed sign policy before you will bring Los Angeles in line with these communities that have embraced technological advances in outdoor advertising. Digital billboards provide a cost-effective means of advertising for businesses that would otherwise not have the financial resources to promote their business and stimulate the economy. Given the importance of billboards, both digital and static, we encourage you to move forward with a policy that brings benefits to all parts of the city. We need the benefits of billboard takedowns and revenue generated from digital billboards to apply to all of our communities, not just a few. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair and members.
Good afternoon, Ms. Gibson.
My name is Angela Gibson Shaw, and I'm president of the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce. I'm returning again to continue to urge you to pass an ordinance that's smart and comprehensive for digital billboards. The African American Chamber of Commerce is dedicated to the growth and development of black-owned businesses, but in a holistic approach, we want to uplift the entire community. In addition to the issues that you just raised, we want to make sure that small businesses have an opportunity to participate, that they have resources, and that there is a substantial fee that can also support the community and other features. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Frank. I represent the Coalition to Ban Billboard Blight. We are a 100% volunteer operation affiliated with Scenic America. I would like to talk about neighborhood councils. It seems that they've weighed in all kinds of different ways, but in fact they haven't. Most of the neighborhood councils have already opted out of digital signs. Every neighborhood council that has weighed in favor or in favor of amendment favors version B+, which would keep digital signs within sign districts. Every neighborhood council that has weighed in against or against with unless amended opposes the Plum version, which was drawn up in 2017. So all 23 neighborhood councils that have weighed in on this has weighed in against the version that would allow digital signs citywide. None has weighed in favor of that particular idea. Moreover, the Planning Commission, which drew up version B+, has withdrawn its delegation of this matter. So whatever this body comes up with has got to either pass the full council with a 2/3 vote, or go back to the City Planning Commission. You knew that already, I hope.
Thank you. Arlen Valdivia, Armando Flores, Olivia Lee, Mary Valencia, Arno Arones, Can Matu, Phil Recht.
Good afternoon. My name is Arlen Valdivia, and I'm here on behalf of the Motion Picture Association of America and our member companies to encourage the council to take action to implement reasonable regulation of off-site digital signs in the city of LA. Digital billboards present an efficient and attractive opportunity for our member companies to advertise their motion picture and television shows. This technology provides a convenient way to keep advertisements current and up to date. For example, following a major award show or highly successful opening weekend, a motion picture company can modify an advertisement on a digital billboard to reflect and incorporate an achievement of a particular film or TV show. We support an ordinance that will establish reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions for off-site digital signage, and that will allow our member companies to take advantage of technology that successfully improves the advertising of motion television pictures. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Guys, got to come on.
Good afternoon. Mary Valencia on behalf of Alpha Media. Thank you, council members, for continuing to work on this important issue. We are committed to the higher standards in outdoor advertising and are working with the city to create fair and workable rules for sign reduction. One of our priorities remains ensuring that the ordinance includes procedures for how applications for relocation agreements will be handled. We have heard from city staff that they are concerned about the resource impact of new ordinance and the processing of relocation agreements. The concept of limiting the number of applications per company per month responds to this concern. We're happy that the planning department is on board with the concept. Provisions for avoiding a rush to the counter should be made part of the ordinance itself, not just included in a policy ordinance guidance document. That is the best way to avoid confusion and avoid conflicts. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Khan Matu. I'm the co-founder of the Hollywood Fringe Festival, Los Angeles' largest nonprofit performing arts festival. We are about to put on our 10th festival with over 400 productions and 2,000 performances this June in 32 venues all over Hollywood. Since our inception, we have put over $2.8 million back into the pockets of our local artists and venues. We have grown tremendously since our first festival in 2010. We spread the word of our programs and performances using several media resources, but one of the most visible and important are our billboards. With that in mind, we are in strong support of advancing a sign ordinance that helps all Angelenos. Please consider allowing digital signs in all appropriate areas. Allowing the digital companies the flexibility to fully grow into the digital age will help nonprofit organizations all over Los Angeles. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Armando Flores with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. We're here today to urge you to move forward with the proposed sign ordinance. Businesses need affordable and modern advertising to succeed in Los Angeles. Exposure from signs helps businesses of all sizes promote their goods and services, attract new customers, and ultimately helps businesses expand. Over 1,000 municipalities across the nation have already enacted comprehensive sign ordinances, allowing for reasonable and responsible use of digital and traditional signs. The proposed ordinance establishes a path for modernized sign policy that will provide Los Angeles with an opportunity to embrace technology in a responsible manner, especially as we prepare for the 2028 Olympics. The proposed ordinance has undergone a rigorous and thorough public review process, which VICA and the business community have been involved in. For these reasons, we urge you to support and move forward with the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Olivia Liu, the LA Area Chamber of Commerce, here in support of the proposed sign ordinance. This proposal would benefit all Angelenos by allowing a limited number of digital signs in exchange for a reduction in overall billboards and a new source of ongoing community funding. LA's proposed sign ordinance establishes a path for a modernized sign policy by permitting appropriately placed digital signs in exchange for a reduction of existing billboards, all while allowing the community to significantly weigh in. Additionally, this would create a source of revenue for public benefits supporting city services and programs that address homelessness, infrastructure, parks and recreation, and more. These community benefits would also be tailored by and for specific neighborhoods, so investments go where they are needed most. We urge the support of a digital sign ordinance that will allow the signs on private and public property outside the current sign districts. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Hello. My name is Arnold Ahrens. I'm a businessman, and I'm here again after 18 years and counting. You can imagine my frustration with this process. Every other major city in the U.S. seems to have been able to create ordinances. Why not here? It seems you've allowed the NIMBYs and the Luddites to obscure a clear path forward. No state or federal agency has raised any objections on this issue. Billboards are for advertising. They are not evil. I know everyone in this room wants this process finished, and we're unhappy definitely with the performance of your predecessors. The loss of time, income, and the expense to the city in litigation is inexcusable. Again, this is your job to create logical ordinances that meet the needs of the city. This is why you were elected, and after 18 years, there seems no excuse that this process should not be resolved. Remember,
Thank you.
there is no process without change.
Thank
you very much.
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
You knocked it out of the park. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Phil Reck, to represent Summit Media. Clearly, there's a strong consensus that whatever program you do approve should allow for participation not only by the largest companies in the city, but by small companies like Summit as well. However, at least two aspects of the proposal for the private property option would defeat that goal. First, there is now a minimum 4-to-1 takedown requirement to convert an existing sign at an existing location. This is twice the minimum 2-to-1 takedown requirement for creating totally new signs at new locations. We're not sure we understand the reason for the difference, but we do know that a 4-to-1 takedown requirement is simply prohibitive for small companies like Summit that just don't have large takedown inventory. Second, there is now a 40% in lieu revenue sharing requirement for companies that utilize a 2-to-1 takedown option. This revenue sharing requirement would seem to far exceed the cost that it is supposed to be in lieu of. Moreover, once again, it is simply prohibitive for small companies and possibly large companies alike. We urge you to consider changing those requirements. Thank you.
Ernest Medrano, John Wellborn, Adeline Bertha, Barbara Brody. Ernesto Medrano.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ernesto Medrano with the Los Angeles and Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. We represent 140,000 hardworking men and women, and we're here with our partners here that represent the industry. We're clearly here to inform you that there's a lot of employment opportunities with these companies, and we're here to make sure that there's a sensible, limitless policy that provide for employment opportunities for the residents of Los Angeles. We have agreements that provide for local hire, veteran preferences, apprenticeship opportunities for young men and women in Los Angeles. We'd like to see a policy that is all-encompassing and provides the greatest opportunities for these workers. Great benefits, retirement plans, everything that I would like to see. We heard much about the disparate income situation in this country. This is a way to partner and for the city to do something that is right. It is long-standing. We're very, very eager to see this done in a very prompt manner. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm John Wellborn. I'm a stakeholder of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I'm also the president of Statewide Scenic California. Digital billboards cast a bright light. I ask you council members to shine an equally bright light on new information just released publicly last week before a 3-day weekend that ended yesterday. Now, interestingly, up to this point, there have been 11 well-prepared speakers from the billboard industry and beneficiaries of billboard legislation. If you consider any ordinance on this short notice, any ordinance in the file, why don't you just wait a few weeks to get some public review of the new information? If you must act on anything, adopt version B+ that has vast public support, and including 100% of the neighborhood councils that have filed statements opposing digital billboards outside of sign districts. And there are, by the way, lots of cities and states that have no billboards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before my time starts, I'm speaking on behalf of the West Side Neighborhood Council, and I request the 3 to 5 minute allowance allowed to neighborhood councils, if I may, please.
Did you submit a community impact statement?
Yes, we did.
Do we have that on file?
Although it's incorrectly listed as neutral on the agenda.
Do we have a community impact statement?
You do. it's on the agenda that there is one from West Side Neighborhood Council. That's where I'm from.
I'm just trying to verify it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, which neighborhood council?
West Side, one word. It's listed under neutral.
Can we do this? Can I take the next speaker and give her a second to figure it out? Thank you. Can we? Yes.
Hello.
Yes, you're on.
All right. Hello, my name is Arlene Bertha. I'm a prevention specialist from Social Model Recovery Systems. I'm here representing some residents from unincorporated area of Boyle Heights, and I'm also representing Skid Row Improvement Coalition. I'm here to discourage an expansion or creation of digital billboards. There's an overconcentration of nuisance alcohol outlets, and there's a lack of regulation around illegal marijuana dispensaries. Approving new digital billboards in any area is giving these businesses the opportunity to advertise to not only communities in recovery, but to our youth. With the onslaught of online advertisements of alcohol sales, marijuana vaping tools, and etc., the need to protect our community is higher than ever. I beseech and recommend the council discourage any opportunity for any additional advertisement of marijuana and alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We all set here?
Yes.
Huh?
So there is a statement, and what we do is we put on the agenda all of the statements that were submitted. Some of the neighborhood councils may have this may be an old position that they have.
Got
but
it.
If they've never submitted an amended or an updated statement, that this won't reflect that.
Okay, so just go ahead and give your thing and we'll
Thank you.
figure it out.
Thank you. I think that's an issue for a number of neighborhood councils because comments were submitted as different versions came along.
Sure.
And now the versions have changed.
Right.
So,
and folks should know this isn't the last time this will be before us, so there'll be opportunities to submit an updated statement based on the new things that come
actually,
out of this discussion.
I would recommend and suggest and request that you send this to the planning department to reach out to neighborhood councils through Plan Check and the other alliances of regional neighborhood councils for true robust conversation, because in the community the feeling is that these deals are cut behind backroom doors with lobbyists from the three major sign companies.
Your suggestion
period.
is duly noted. We'll
Thank
start
you.
your time.
Councilman, how many minutes do you want on this one?
Pardon me?
Is it 1 minute?
Yes.
The future of LA's visual environment is at stake. This is not a discussion about an ordinance. This is a discussion about how Los Angeles looks in the future and what we leave to our children. The choice is an enticing, beautiful visual environment or a digital environment, which has been documented to cause urban stressors, driver distraction, traffic accidents and death, epileptic seizures, migraine headaches, you name it. As we look to build our city and increase density on our commercial corridors, we're now looking at a way to put digital billboards on commercial corridors. We have a policy on the one hand, Vision Zero, to reduce traffic injuries and death, but now we're thinking about putting these distracting elements. The city is out of sync. Something is wrong. We all participated in 15 Plum Committee meetings, a number of City Planning Commission meetings on this matter, and we seem to be going backwards. It feels like this ordinance was held hostage for a number of years by Plum, and you are now new members of Plum and don't have the history. You've come into a movie theater not minutes into the movie, not hours into the movie, not months into the movie, but years into the movie. And we all in the communities have a long history of fighting for this. We're tired, though. We feel like the whole strategy is to beat us down and nip away at the edges until the sign industry gets exactly what they've always wanted, which is unfettered digital placements across the city. What do we get in exchange? Removal of signs in industrial areas that no longer attract people. The city was given a letter by the city attorney. The council was given a letter saying, give me the authority to review the permits that are out of compliance with what they were permitted to do or may be illegal. And no one has ever acted on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I will note that we're all committee members are new. But for most of my adult life, I've been involved in the conversation about billboards. So it's not a movie that we're years late to. But so that's your time. Thank you. We're going to be back, and I look forward to seeing you then. And I look forward to seeing your updated community impact statement from your council.
On-site signs were always to be treated separately, and it was a sudden throw-in that suddenly they're being talked about.
Thank
We
you so
request they
much. We appreciate you. All right. Stash Molesky, Paula Ramirez, Nina Womack Moody, Carlos Lopez.
Hi, my
Were
name
you
is-
in the Matrix
Yeah.
too?
I do
You
that.
were?
No. Thank you. Can I restart my time?
Seriously? Stop his time. Were you in the Matrix?
No.
Okay.
I do that for I do that for Halloween every once in a while.
Okay.
though.
Thank you. Start his time.
My name is Stosh Molesky, and I'm with ICU Art. I represent hand-painted muralists in this city. We do hand-painted advertising murals across the country, but we're not able to do them here in Los Angeles. I'm here to request that we could possibly carve out some space in this ordinance for people that do hand-painted murals. They don't require any additional light. They don't require any additional construction. They're on existing buildings. They can really enliven pedestrian districts, and we can put lots and lots of artists to work here in this city.
And are you thinking of those murals as advertisements or just public art?
I think there's two types. There's the sponsored type that just have a logo and art, and then there's also the kind that are more like hand-painted advertisements. We're definitely open to regulating the content so we don't have violence or alcohol or cannabis advertising. And I would just really encourage you to, we don't have billboards to take down, so you're locking us out of this. So please give us a chance to participate, and we can get some people from the artist community here and trying to find a way to carve out something for us.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Nina Womack. I am a third-generation South Los Angeles native, a community activist, also a trained peer mental health advocate and homeless advocate, and I also do multimedia and event organizing. I am currently organizing, I started a brand called Let's Be Whole, WHOLE. That is a health and wellness organization that I am bringing through education, through events, natural health and wellness to underserved communities of color in South LA. I'm currently working with NAMI of Urban Los Angeles, Black Women for Wellness. I just received a grant from the Department of Mental Health, and I'm working with Marquise's office, CD8, on a health event that we're doing together as partners on July 20th. So I'm asking that for organizations such as myself who are dedicated to the community to enhance their physical well-being, that you please allocate space for us with these digital billboards to be able to promote to the community. So
Thank you. That's your time.
Good afternoon, esteemed council members and chair members of Plum. My name is Paula Ramirez, and I have been a lifelong resident of Los Angeles. I live in the area of Northeast Los Angeles for the past 15 years, and I thank you for your hard work on this issue. I'm here to discuss the subject of equality. Every community in the city should have the opportunity to benefit from the sign ordinance. Equality is an important city value. Any potential opt-out language would create inequality, not equality of opportunity. This opportunity should encourage takedowns of existing signs together with community benefits from modernized signs. Including an opt-out, opt-in provision in this ordinance would limit sign reduction opportunities for everyone in the city, which would be wrong. The proposed ordinance includes neighborhood protection and public benefit requirements that would be applied in every location, and there should not be any opt-out language. Don't create inequality with this new sign ordinance. The need is clear, the opportunity is here. Please move this policy to council.
That's your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Lopez. I am a citizen in Los Angeles. I like to think that I have an ear on the ground. I own and operate a business in Los Angeles, a restaurant, Las Cazuelas Restaurant. Hello, sir. And well, basically, I think there is a benefit to this, to the billboards. We could advertise as businesses. It's probably more accessible to us than network TV and so forth. So I think that it would be positive, as well as for the nonprofits that may want to take part in it and be able to have some kind of outreach to the community. I think it's just all in all a benefit to the city. Some concerns have been raised about them being placed, but I think if they're placed on commercial corridors, I see no problem with it. Also, there are certain laws in the city where I guess as a business, we can't even place signage outside of the businesses without any permits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's your time.
Thank you for the time.
All right. Guy. Sounds like a great restaurant. So we'll invite folks back to the table, and we'll open it up for conversation. I will give the first opportunity to Mr. Cedillo from the 1st District. He decided not to do it. Mr. Blumenfeld.
Okay, thank you. A couple things. Just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So if no findings were required for the relocation agreements, then the mechanism would be ministerial or by right on the one hand. And then also if you, and I'm asking these questions, I'm still a little hung up on the discretionary issue and how much discretion we could get as a city. And the same logic, if we had findings that would allow for, if we have findings that gives us theoretically wider discretion, but there are limits on what the findings can be required or made because of freedom of speech issues and other things. So either way, it seems like there's certain limitations on the discretion that we have. So tell me about, at the end of the day, if we allow these relocation agreements, what would our discretionary possibility be as a city, as a council district, for example?
You would have, as you stated, limited discretion. The findings that are written in the ordinance today are more objective than our typical findings and relate more to compatibility. And so they give you some leeway in your decision making, but it's not as open-ended as, say, a conditional use permit would typically be. And conversely, if you didn't want to deal with findings, you would have to make it ministerial.
Which gives us
no
discretion. What is the maximum way, if we wanted to tip the scales toward discretion? It's just, so that we have, being able to assure our constituents that at the end of the day, we're going to have some control over whether a sign is ultimately put up in a particular spot. What can we do to make those, to widen that findings? Is there anything we can do?
Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. So there are really two different issues. There's the sign districts that we allow today. Even though we have a ban on billboards, we do allow sign districts, so we already have findings that are appropriate to establish that geography. And you're speaking, I think, more primarily to allowing these off-site signs outside of those sign districts. So I think that we were looking at very objective criteria. They go in a certain zone, certain distances from certain uses and certain other zones. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question exactly.
You're telling me more and more of the objective factors, and I'm
really
trying to.
Objective. I don't really think there can be many subjective things, according to our conversations with the city attorney's office, that it's always going to come down to why are we going to choose a sign in one neighborhood that has the same parameters that another location would have. Why would one get a yes and why would one get a no? And I don't know if I have the right answer for that, other than
right. And that's what I was
likes something better than another place.
Right. When the report back on the limitations, and that's what I was trying to drive at. Is there any way to push it more toward
we attempted to make it as open-ended as we could. We can certainly go back and revisit with city attorney and make sure that we've gone as wide as we can.
Because for me, that's a level of comfort that I mean, I understand, and I know that the chair has some ideas in terms of restricting it, which maybe lets us dip our toe in the water, and maybe that's the way to go, is we don't have to do all of this all at once, but we start with a very limited amount and then see how that goes. But it's, what I want to see ultimately is the maximum amount of discretion that we can get. And we have that in creating sign districts. We can be, that is
There's more subjectivity allowed with a sign district. Is it placemaking? Is it, it's like establishing any type of geography. But with the individual signs, I think the challenge of subjectivity versus objectivity becomes is much more difficult. I don't know how it would happen. We would have to talk more with the city attorney. But with the sign districts, Hollywood is a place that, there's a reason why there's a sign district there Some may agree, some may
And
disagree.
sign districts can get very narrow, right? I mean, you
They
can
go
have a
down
sign
to about
district on an
3
intersection.
acres is our minimum size, 3 or 5 acres. So you would have to have a sizable chunk of land, and that would be its own set of regulations. It could be very different than the ones at LA Live or maybe one in Koreatown or Warner Center. But there's only limited places. Right now, you would have to be in a regional center.
Is that, right now, because I've heard different things, in the way it's proposed now, it has to be in a regional center, or is that something new?
The way it's proposed now is that it has to be in a regional center, a sign district. Right now, currently the
I meant
rules.
for this signs outside of a sign district.
Well, you're not allowed to have a sign, off-site sign outside of a sign district because there's a, there's
I'm
a
talking
ban.
about the proposed idea, obviously. Correct. We're not there yet.
Our proposal was if they were going to go outside of sign districts, or some of the discussions in the previous Plum meetings, if we were going to allow off-site signs outside of sign districts, they would have gone along commercial corridors or manufacturing zones with all of those distancing requirements I had already mentioned from single-family neighborhoods and sensitive uses and from each other.
All right. And this may seem not related, but it's kind of related. And as you know, we've had a proliferation of these mobile digital signs on Lyfts and Ubers recently that's the city attorney has said is illegal, but they're out there. And what I'm curious about, and maybe I'll just ask for this as a report back, because I don't expect you to have the answer to this right now, but in terms of, does the proliferation of these digital ads on vehicles, as is being perpetuated by these blight merchant companies out there who are trying to use our right-of-way for advertising, unlike the billboards that we're talking about here, which are permitted and approved, these mobile billboards go everywhere. And so what I'm curious is the effect on the value or the ability of the city to utilize relocation agreements should these mobile billboards proliferate. So maybe I'll be more specific and request a report back that the city attorney, with the assistance of planning, report back on the potential impacts to our digital sign ban from digital services like Firefly, both generally as well as specifically whether allowing those services would put our ban at risk or diminish the value of creating a public or private digital sign relocation program, or would it diminish our ability to make findings about the compatibility with surrounding communities? Because I don't know how you make, if you have to determine that under the findings that you don't degrade the surrounding environment or public safety, how you can make that determination if everywhere in the right-of-way in front of that sign has digital billboards on it, mobile billboards. So to me, it seems like there's clearly a link here between our ability to make such a finding and the ubiquity of these illegal signs on these vehicles. So I'm concerned about that and the relationship that has to our moving forward with a billboard ordinance, because I'm worried that if this ubiquity is allowed to continue or becomes ubiquitous, it's going to be impossible to move something forward here, because it'll become impossible to make those findings. Is that? I know I said a mouthful there, but that's what I'd like to get back in terms of a report back. And I'll ask some more questions, but I'll turn it back to the chair for now.
No, you should.
Okay, I'll ask other questions then.
Yes.
The opt-in, does that? I was hearing in some of the comments concern about the opt-in, how it would hurt certain communities because then we wouldn't be allowed to take those signs down. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if the opt-in only refers to where the digital sign would be put up, it doesn't necessarily refer to where the signs would be taken down. Is that correct?
Right now, it's just a concept. I also heard a speaker say that according to the ordinance, 50% of the signs have to be taken down in the council district in which the sign is established, and the other 50% could go elsewhere. That actually isn't part of the ordinance now. It was just discussed in the policy document, but you could add it to the ordinance. So really, the opt-in now is just a vague concept.
It's a vague concept, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you opt in, you're only opting in for for everything. You could opt in for, hey, if you have signs in the district, we're happy to have them taken down, but not opt in for we're willing to have digital billboards in our.
It would depend on how the ordinance is written, but it could be written that way.
Right. So it's not. They're not necessarily. That's just. I was. My curiosity was piqued on that, and I certainly didn't think that that's how it was written. There was also something else that was said about. Question: why is it twice the number for new sign takedowns than for conversions that have to have four times? If you could address that issue that was raised.
Sure. So the takedown, the minimum takedown requirement for a new sign is 2 to 1, but it's supposed to be 9 to 1. But if an applicant can't reach the 9 to 1, they can provide an in lieu payment, and that payment table is provided in the report. The speaker was referring to if you would like to actually convert an existing sign, so you're relocating it from its current location to its current location, but converting it to digital. The way the ordinance now is written, that sign reduction for that privilege would be 4 to 1. And that is something that Plum instructed us to include in the ordinance.
Do you see any contradiction between those two ideas? Or?
Well, I think, I think the rationale was, so we have location parameters for where these new relocated signs can go, and this would be an exception where there's an applicant wants to convert a sign in its current location that wouldn't otherwise qualify. So it's an extra privilege, and I guess the rationale for that extra privilege would be increased sign reduction.
Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for your leadership on getting us through, getting us this far, and thanks to staff for their hard work. Just a couple of questions. The sign impact area in the ordinance is described as an area by which takedown would be, by which the takedown would occur. But does the ordinance define the impact area in terms of the visibility of off-site digital sign from an adjoining low-density residential land use?
No. So the sign impact area that relates to sign districts. So when a sign district is established, they establish the boundaries of the sign district, and they also at the same time establish the boundaries of the sign impact area, and that's left open to the people who are establishing the sign district.
So there should be some discretion there in
Yes,
how that is determined?
establishing the sign district is discretionary.
Total discretionary. In the in lieu you mentioned earlier, the in lieu provisions are only for a term of 20 years. Why not the operational life of the sign? Or are we saying that is the operational life of the sign?
So you're correct that it is for a term of 20 years, and that again was per instructions from Plum.
So we could make it longer or
Yes.
shorter? Or
Yes.
Any advantages in making it longer?
Not being the CAO, I don't have financial expertise. Perhaps the CAO can respond to that.
CAO available?
Claudia Aguilar with the CAO's office. Part of the discussion was whether we would actually accept payments that would be in present value for 20 years. So the 20-year term would allow us to do that calculation. If it's too far open-ended, it would make it more difficult to get it to be a benefit that would actually be in the present time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Price. So a couple categories of questions, and I'll start with the ones about placement of the sign. So it seems like there's two ways, and you all correct me if I'm articulating this wrong. So there are two ways to go about it. There's to create a set of requirements and distancing and location and distance from zones, and then just throw that as like a blanket over the entire city of Los Angeles, and anybody who can find a place that qualifies, that you get a sign there, right? Then the other way is to establish sign districts, maybe more expanded than what we have now, or dramatically more expanded than what we have there. And then each sign district could have specifications based on the realities in that particular sign district. And then once that's done, then the sign makers would be able to place signs there based on the parameters of that sign district. Am I understanding the sort of two pathways correctly?
May I just qualify that to make sure we're all on the same page? So the ordinance now is an enabling ordinance to
Yes.
enable sign districts to be established. It doesn't create sign districts.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, but once a sign district, if I create a sign district by USC, by a university, it's not a requirement that a sign district that I created by the beach has to have exactly the same parameters as the one by the university.
Correct.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, they could have their own rule. They could be completely different. They could have their own sets of lighting standards and distancing standards, or there could be none, and some could be very strict.
And I think that's the intent of the sign districts, that they're to reflect the unique characteristics of the geography that they represent.
I see.
think one of the problems that we came up with when we were working on the ordinance for the last whatever is that it's a difficult balance, because right now the current draft talks about limiting them to regional centers, whereas the rules today are all commercial zones. So I don't know it's really hard to find a more middle
Sure.
ground that's one or the other or neither. Am I being clear? I guess it's like
Yeah, no, that makes
regional
sense.
centers was the most intensive part of the cities, but commercial zones are everywhere. So it's
Commercial
kind
zone,
of,
that's a very broad category.
yes, so
of
it's broad
land
and
uses.
specific. And if you want it to
Yeah.
be a little more liberal than what we're talking about in the ordinance today, we would have to really think about what that would be.
Well, that would be one of the questions I would ask is, are there narrower designations? If they're not, they're not. But it seems like a big jump from this broad, all commercial spaces to you have to establish a sign district. And in the case that those are the only two choices, it seems clear, like among our colleagues, that establishing sign districts would be the most comfortable opposition, and it'll take care of a lot of the issues that neighborhood councils and other communities are raising. Okay, so so the ask is that we think about other categories between those two things. The second one is on this this question of the takedowns. So you talked about establishing, I guess, right now, what's before us is a takedown procedure that is related to where the new sign will be, or is proposed.
Well, so for sign districts, yes, and for relocation agreements, the ordinance doesn't specify where the takedown would happen.
Okay, and how are we talking about sign blight now? Like, how are we defining that?
We don't. It's not in the ordinance.
Okay, so that would be another ask of a report back, is that we propose a definition of...
Tom Rothman, we did discuss that with the takedowns, half would come from the immediate area, and then half would just come from almost anywhere else in the city. So assuming that there are blighted areas with a proliferation of billboards,
right, but
they could come down from anywhere, the half that come out from outside.
Right,
the
but
other half are
you understand the
closed.
problem with that, right? So I'm assuming this would be at the discretion of the sign company, so like one of the public comment testifiers indicated, there might be signs that are not actually blighting anybody that get taken down in the takedown, and then while the
that's an
signs
accurate
that are
statement,
blight
yes.
are left up. So
But that's part of the discretion, because it is a relocation agreement. It's a contract between the outdoor advertiser and the council, and so that could be specified which signs, or there could be a negotiation which signs.
okay, so let me jump back to this whole sign district versus a citywide overlay question. So in the citywide overlay notion, if the sign maker, I'm calling them, can't come to an agreement with the city about the relocation or the takedown, that does what to their ability to put up a new sign?
Well, Phyllis described earlier, there was a graduated takedown versus in lieu payment calculation. So if you couldn't take down too many, but there was still a minimum requirement of 2 to 1, if you had to go as low as 2 to 1, then you would be paying a higher in lieu fee. As you could
Sure.
take down a lot more, the fee goes down, the takedown goes up.
Right, but now we're talking about something slightly different, and that is, and because you just indicated, well, they would have to be in agreement on what's blight. So what if there's no agreement about what's blight?
Well, I don't know if we really discussed that being blight. We were just saying anywhere in the city was the half that has to come down. You could choose, as long as I guess you'd have to have
Who chooses?
the applicant of the new sign could choose.
It's what propose.
Yeah. Where the billboards come down from.
So
in the
it really
immediate
is.
area.
So it really isn't an agreement. It's what they decide. It's what they
I think we have
decide
to
to
be as
take down.
objective as possible. So as if they have a 6-to-1 takedown ratio, 3 of those signs or those square footage had to come down immediately, and then 3, there was no rules other than outside of that sign impact area.
Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on your question, could we not make that a discretionary item where we have to agree on the signs that get taken down?
We can explore that with the city attorney.
Because I would think that if that may be something that could be written in where they don't get, it's not just their decision about where it is. This city has to agree. We can't dictate they take a particular sign down, but we can essentially then have veto power if we say we don't agree that those are the right signs. But we just can't be boxed into a corner of saying 9 signs no matter where they are, because then as the chair has mentioned,
Because then it's not a public benefit.
We did have one speaker. There's some sign companies that have a very limited inventory, so I think they're going to be sort of hamstrung about where they can take a sign down. They just can't take a sign down because it's out there. They have to have some kind of
but that's
ownership or some type of control over that sign.
That's true, and that's an entirely different discussion. But Mr. Bertoni, I believe you were going to make a comment.
No, I think that it got covered in the
Okay.
answer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we obviously need to hear more about this, about where the takedowns coming, because that's why I started with the question, like, what are we defining as blight? And it sounds like what I'm hearing back that was being completely left up to the owner of the signs, and so we need to kind of drill down on that. I know we have some maps that lay out where we have concentration of signs. I know that there's the issue of signs on residential in people's front yards. I know that there are categories that we can come up with, certainly in Mr. Price and my district and a lot of other parts of the city where we could define blight. And so we'd ask you all to take a stab at doing that, including zones that may have a concentration of these blighted conditions. So now I want to move off of that. So I'm going to try to stay off of the sign district versus overlay and stay off of the blighted signs and what signs gets taken back and move to a new category, and that is the relationship between public signs on public property or city-owned assets and private land. Can you just give an overview of how you all are thinking about that?
I didn't hear the whole question because we were conferring.
Just public versus private.
Okay, so the way the ordinance is currently written, and it was written per Plum's instructions, I
Sure.
believe the intent of Plum was to have these location restrictions to apply to property, whether it's privately owned or owned by a public entity. So there is no public-private distinction in the ordinance.
Okay,
Currently, the one that's on the table.
Okay, so can I ask you all to, I want to give an instruction that we ask you all to explore 2 options. One is that there is a time period where we only allow public followed by a time period going, I guess, for 20 years, since that's the time period we're using, where we allow public and private. And then we also study an option that looks at private based on a ratio to public square footage. All right, that makes sense?
Lots of studying to do.
It's lots of studying to do. 18 years isn't quite enough. All right, so that concludes my questions. I'll kick it back to members because I know there's probably more there. Mr. Blumenfeld?
I just wanted to add in terms of requests, you talk about on page 9 about the options for opt-in, but if you're putting language together, I'd like to see what that would actually look like. Not instructing us to do that, but just to have fleshed out language of what an opt-in provision could look like.
Mr. Cedillo, Mr. Price? Good? Mr. Cedillo, yes.
Well, only that, we're not all the same, and so that's obviously always a question for everything that we do in this city. My concerns are about the smaller companies who do have the presence in my district.
Yeah.
And equity is obviously my concern. One of my top restaurants, who I highly recommend and who is here today. Our challenges are challenges of access, opportunity, ability to get our products and our businesses advertised. And so those are the types of concerns we have. In addition, I think there has to be some attention paid to the hand-painted signage and what that means, the rights of that. Is it a mural? Is it a sign? Are we limiting them? Is content limited to, let's say, the promotion of the business, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that are very important. In my district, we're trying to bring a lot of color to our district, and signage in our communities are really one way in which that happens, and so we look forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. I will concur with Mr. Cedillo. I think it's extremely important that we define a sponsored piece of art versus an advertisement. I mean, I think it's one of those things that's clear when you see it, but we need to get it. We need to drill down on that.
Tom Rothman. Up to about, I'm just going to say 10 years ago, we did have the sign ordinance did contain murals, and they were one and the same. A mural was actually defined as a mural sign. So we worked on a specific ordinance that got adopted about 10 years ago that has specific rules for murals. So I'm not aware of any problems that it's administered by the Department of Cultural Affairs.
So the issue that was raised, would it?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. The gentleman, Stash, I wasn't sure what his issue was, because we do have very clear rules, but the Department of Cultural Affairs has to be sure that there is no commercial message being conveyed in the mural. If there is one, then it becomes a wall sign.
Yeah, I worked on the fine art mural ordinance for probably over 10 years, actually. And those murals have to sign an agreement, a covenant that says it can't change for 2 years. Building owner can't receive a penny, and you can't have any kind of commercial advertisement for on-premise or off-premise. So,
okay.
We need to be able to control the media, not just paint a mural. We need to. Building owners and artists should be able to control that media. Small business owners and small property owners, not just the big, huge companies.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you. But I think just to report back on how the mural, the fine arts mural, relates to this or not,
sure. Yes.
would be super important.
Right, there's a hybrid here.
Right?
Yeah, this is a hybrid. I mean, I think my interest is in there's a hybrid that's been articulated. There is the mural ordinance,
right?
And then it was tied up until we got here 6 years ago. That was lifted. So there is a capacity to do murals in the city. That's wonderful. But what we're talking about here is a hybrid between that. Those who it's a blend between both advertising and art, and it's tied to a specific business at a specific location. That is something that obviously we're interested in. That's, I think, the issue that's being raised.
I think that we'll have some careful conversations with the city attorney's office on that, because I think the reason why we got to the place today is that was a difficult path to go down from a legal standpoint, because the First Amendment for speech rights, but we can bring that up in our analysis and show you to see if there's some other options and talk to our attorneys again about that.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so we have a number of instructions and report backs. You want to take a go at seeing if we have a good list, Mr. Mejia?
Sure. Okay, so I'll start with the ones that I have, Councilman. One is to define billboard blight. Two, establish zones where takedown would be a priority, accounting for areas with higher concentrations of billboard blight. Three, prioritize in lieu fees in areas where higher concentration of billboard blight exists. Four, expand penalties to property owners that allow unpermitted illegal signs. And five, report back on a proposal for the phasing in or consideration of digital signs, off-site signs in areas where the definition, in areas meeting the definition rather for public.
And that's either in time or in ratio.
And either in time or ratio. And then there were a series of instructions as it relates to murals versus signs and how they relate to one another. There was the issue that Mr. Cedillo brought up as it relates to equity and how you treat smaller companies. There was an instruction by Councilman Blumenfield as to options for opt-in and what opt-in provisions would look like. And then there was also an instruction as it relates to private, do you have this language? Options for private to...
No, we already did that.
Okay, we already did that one. Okay, so I think that covers everything.
No, and then I think Blumenfeld wanted to get the mechanism from, there was more restrictive sign districts to more broad overlays.
Okay, there was also an instruction by Councilman Blumenfield
Yes.
as it relates to more restrictive sign districts versus the citywide overlays.
Okay.
And then I think he wanted more options as it relates to that.
Well, what we said was that right now we had this citywide overlay based on zones, and we had sign districts.
Right.
And the request was to find if there's something in the middle of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got that? We got that?
Was it Rita Moreno, City Clerk? I think there was also an issue in terms of the mobile digital signs.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Yes,
That was
mobile.
the one,
Yes,
I
don't
didn't hear.
forget that, Yeah.
Right.
Mobile digital signs and how the lack of regulation on those may or may not impair our ability to regulate.
Relocation agreements.
Yeah, and I read it out, but I can give you the written version of what I read
Yes.
earlier to make it easier. But that to report back with the city attorney and planning department, I don't need to repeat it again, but I read it into the record earlier, and I'll give you a written copy.
Okay.
All right. And can we do this August 13th? All right. We're all blessed by the oncoming council recess. So August 13th, we'll be back here. We'll come back. We'll have another reading. Everybody get this. We'll have another discussion here. If we come to some agreement, after we do that, it'll go to the City Planning Commission, and then they'll have a set of discussions, and it'll come back here. And one day before we all retire, this will get done. All right? Thank you all so much. Mr. Mejia, can you confirm that that completes our business for today?
That concludes the business for today, Council.
Thank you.